Chambers, and I call the City Commission Workshop meeting to order. Commissioners present are Commissioner McDowell, Commissioner White, Mayor Emmerich, Vice Mayor Langdon, and Commissioner Luke. There is a quorum present for this meeting. Also present, we have City Manager Fletcher, Assistant City Attorney Golan, City Clerk Taylor, and
Just me.
just you. And we have Commander Lasso and Fire Chief Titus in the back. And I'm going to call on Mr. Fletcher to lead us in the pledge, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, is there any online public comment?
There is none.
All right, I have one in-house. Commissioner McDowell, Debbie McDowell, please.
And Mayor, just to explain why I filled out a public comment card, there is no commission communications at a workshop. So I wanted to speak about something that has been tearing me up for the past 3 weeks. On April 20th, we held a commission retreat for professional development and to help build trust among the commission and charter officers. I left the retreat completely deflated and felt verbally beat up by my colleagues. I have since dissected the spirit of the words. I have accepted some nuggets as constructive criticism, and the balance I strive to apply the Q-tip acronym, quit taking it personally. 24 hours after the retreat, I found out that staff was invited to watch our retreat and that the retreat was recorded. I had zero knowledge it was being recorded or staff was invited to listen to a commission retreat. Those two actions completely severed the tiny bit of trust I had remaining. In my opinion, those actions were unprofessional, deceptive, and possibly illegal. I am sure if a department head did this to any of their colleagues, they would be reprimanded and possibly be looking for another job. Recognizing that I have 2.5 years of my term, I owe it to the citizens to find ways to navigate these troubled waters. Therefore, I have requested the procurement of some type of professional conflict resolution strategies to be conducted with the city manager, myself, and a mediator by using my training budget. I will keep you posted on those efforts. The most egregious part of this retreat is the undisputable fact that the directors were provided a link to listen, but not the citizens. If there was a shred of benefit to the staff listening, the public should have been able to listen too. We were negligent in not allowing the public to have the opportunity to participate. And I have to wonder if by providing the link to the directors, did that action make the retreat a public meeting? I sincerely wish I could turn back the hands of time, because if I could, I would never have participated in the retreat knowing all the things I know now. And in my opinion, the retreat and its aftermath did not achieve the goals of team building or developing trust, nor did it fulfill the slogan, community of unity. It certainly was not transparent to those that we serve. And Mayor, at this time, I'm going to take a few minutes to check my face.
Sure.
Check your what?
My face.
Oh, okay.
All right, we're going to move on to general business. 22-2729, City Manager.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is discussion and possible action regarding the use of coronavirus state and local recovery funds for projects including but not limited to the Sumter Boulevard I-70 water and sewer extension, construction, installation of broadband conduit to Sumter Boulevard I-75, installation of broadband conduit to Toledo Blade Boulevard I-75, as well as City of Northport website improvements, Wallen Park General Government Building, and the purchase of 10 acres for 3 economic development sites. The purpose of this workshop item is we were a direct recipient of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds of $4.2 million on June 7th of 2021. And we are expecting another second tranche of $4.2 million in June of 2022 for a total of $8.4 million. During the budget workshop that was held last June, the project decided for use were $3.4 million for Toledo Blade Boulevard and I-75, as well as $813 for Sumter and I-75 water and sewer extension. Since that time, the city has received $1.69 million from the Florida Job Growth Grant from the state for the Toledo Blade Boulevard and I-75 extension, which helped reduce the need in that area. Construction bids were opened on April 26th of 2022, and the lowest bid was $2,030,000. The highest bid was $3.1 million. So by the date of this discussion, we have provided some recommendations of where we believe that you may want to particularly invest this second tranche of funding for the city. We have included items that range from larger items to smaller items. When you see the items, you're going to recognize that in addition to the ones that I have already mentioned, there are items such as conduit for $285,000, website improvements for $100,000. And these are designed just to give you some options as we talk about for where we should spend it. The amount of money that you're going to see in here also includes a Welland Park government building, and that is the annex building that we are obligated to finish in Welland Park. There was a funding shortage of it. We do have this funding source as well as another one in question to pay for that, as well as a Camoin study recommendation of purchasing economic development sites to get them shovel-ready. The information on the specificity of those sites is not to be discussed today. One, because our team hasn't identified which sites will be ultimately purchased, and two, if you do say that publicly, then you could risk the rate of driving those prices up. So, but the purchase of the sites was a highly recommended action from the Camoin study and something that we would ask you to consider either today and or during the budget process when we bring back recommendations as well. So we do have Valerie here from our city manager's office as our grant writer, and she can help walk us through some of the decision-making processes of this particular item.
All right, before you go, you had mentioned that $813 went to something, or was that?
813,000?
Okay, you said dollars.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that
Yes.
was a little low. So
Yes,
I just wanted to get that corrected.
my
Thank you.
apologies. Yes, $813,679.50.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, carry on, sir.
Yep. Val, you want? Oh,
Bring up the numbers?
Oh. yeah, that would be helpful.
So Val Maligowski, grant writer. Before this meeting, I made up a spreadsheet so you can kind of see how the numbers are landing. So the balance of the ARPA SLFRF funds right now is the 7.2. That's what's available, estimated, of course. And that includes the low bid that has just come in last week or the week prior for the Toledo Blade I-75 water and sewer. And then down there at the bottom of the sheet, there's some project suggestions are there, and then the total of those project suggestions. So that way you have a kind of something to look at as you discuss this. Couple things just to keep in mind. The most important is any funding decision, the project must be complete by December 31st of 2026. So anything that we fund, it has to be complete by that date. We still have to do reports on our projects to the federal government of what we've decided to use the funds for. So I just want to make sure you keep that in the back of your mind.
Is that all you got?
Yes, that's all from our side.
Okay. I'll open it up to commissioner questions.
I had a question about the Sumter and 75, not
Raise
that.
your hand, please.
Oh,
Go ahead, Commissioner
I
White.
just had a question. Didn't we transfer some surtax funds for that project too, or no, that's something else? Remind me.
I don't believe, well, it's
Wasn't there-
finance.
Or Meadow Springs Park did.
No, I thought there was one of those interchanges. We directed surtax funds, right?
Utilities had a project they were gonna do,
Yes.
neighborhood expansion, and then that money got rediverted to make this project happen. That was before we became aware that we were gonna receive $8.2 million from the federal government.
And what was that amount? Is that the one?
It was about $3 million for the, yeah.
So there's no surtax money now being diverted to,
No, there's still, surtax monies that were gonna do neighborhood expansion, but then that money got diverted to this. So the idea maybe being is to take the ARPA money, fund the project, and then redeploy that surtax money either back in the utilities project that it was originally going to go into, or somewhere else.
I thought that was what it was stated to be done when we said use ARPA funds for it. I thought it automatically put the money back in to utilities. Do you guys need direction?
I guess we're just
Take
wanting a
it
little bit
back?
more of a consensus on that, and if that's what needs to be done, then obviously that's what we can do.
okay, so just to be clear, there's no surtax money now going to I-75 and Sumter? I thought that's,
No, right now, it is. Right now,
We
you
do
do
have, okay.
that, but you've got this money that you can spend on water and sewer projects. Actually, now that you've made your decision, it could be spent on a lot of different things.
oh, okay, so that surtax money is still going to 75 and Sumter?
Unless you
That's
decide,
nothing.
go ahead, Val.
Please, Val.
I just wanted to note that on line 17 here, this 3.3 million.
Yes.
Right here, that's that surtax money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that would, I think it was a little less than that, but the estimates have come in a little higher. So to fully fund Sumter Boulevard and I-75 is at 3.3 million.
So staff is recommending that you use your ARPA money, or consider using your ARPA money to do that project instead of using your surtax money.
Right.
And to consider giving that surtax money back to utilities or redeploying it somewhere else, but allowing that money to go back possibly to utilities, that surtax money to do the project that was originally going to be
okay.
done.
All right, got it. Thank you.
And I guess maybe we're needing a final decision on that, because I thought we'd already made that decision, that we use ARPA funds for those corridors.
Yeah.
The logical thing is the money goes back into the surtax to be utilized
Yeah.
where it was originally designed and planned. So I guess we need to put that on our to-do list in a meeting.
Yeah, cause I was under the same impression when I was looking at this, when it said to fund Sumter, I thought we were already done with that, with using these funds, so.
And maybe we missed it, but I think when we go back and look at the minutes, I don't know if it was captured that way, but that sounds like that was the intent.
Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, my recollection of the ARPA funds for the first go-around was to fully fund Toledo Blade, the balance to go to Sumter, and that when the second round of ARPA funds came in, then we would talk about how we were going to disperse it, because everything was still kind of up in the air with ARPA, and we didn't want to allocate something until we had check in hand, is my recollection of it. But then we got the job growth grant, which fully pays, as you can see, for pretty close to both. And, you know, I hope part of our conversation is going to be, what are we gonna do with that extra $3 million?
Spend it.
But we definitely are gonna have to, and I read somewhere that the job growth grant had a contingency on certain number of jobs in a certain amount of time. I heard that, but I didn't see that in the grant application or the grant documents.
It's in the contract. I believe it's in 2036.
10 years.
Yeah, that we have to report on the amount of jobs. So this is an ongoing grant. It's gonna last a while.
That job growth grant was for Sumter in particular, or Toledo Blade?
Just Toledo.
Blade in particular.
Just Toledo.
And that was the larger 3.3 million, correct?
Correct.
So that has to be used there.
And the bids have come in, for Toledo Blade Water and Sewer Line Extension, it's coming in about $2 million. So the governor's grant will almost pay for that whole $2 million.
With the cost, I'm sorry,
No, go right ahead.
with the cost of construction accelerating at rapid pace, is it wise to spend the excess at this point? Because between what we received in ARPA round one and what we received in job growth grant, it's definitely over budget of what we need. Should we wait to disperse those funds until we know for sure we don't need additional monies? Because of everything going up so much. And I know that they probably have a contingency of 10%, but with the cost of construction, that 10% just may not be enough.
City manager, your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, if we have to take the funds and then wait for more information, we don't have to make that decision right here today, do we, Val? I mean, I don't think that there's a timeline for you to have to make a decision without all the information that you need and feel comfortable with making it. But today, you know, I think just by the conversation we've had in this little bit of time is pointing out that with the additional factors that have sort of came in since the last time you guys made a decision here, that the discussion about what to do going forward is a good one. So we may not have that exact answer today regarding how we should or shouldn't move forward with that particular amount of money in this $7.9 million. But I'm sure if finance were sitting here, they'd say, well, absolutely, you know, use it towards surtax, you know, because we push some things off to the next one based on making the potential arrival of price arriving for the one that'll happen in November. So if that's the case, then maybe we could have a little parking lot list that she could share what that would be used for. And that might be the most helpful thing, because we all know that there is infrastructure and items that we need done, but without having them sort of combined with the surtax list, we may be looking at only one side of the puzzle.
Now, 1 second. When you had said this in the beginning, you said you had another financing place for the Welland Park government. What was that?
So the other, when I was talking about that, the fund balance that we look at when you look at the general fund, even over the reserve amount of 20%, still on the projections that we use right now from our finance team is like $7 million. From that $7 million is a threshold that needs to be maintained in there. It can only, in its truest form, be used for non-recurring costs. So if you wanted to use some of that $7.3 million towards something like this as a one-time cost, it should be eligible for that. That's part of the other pot of funding that could be used for these kind of items.
Okay. Commissioner Luke, go ahead.
Could we get somebody to tell us which pots have which criteria so we know? Meaning, what are the parameters for ARPA? Is it capital improvements, one-time expenditures? You know, what about surtax? What about that sustainability fund? Which one is more wide open? Because those projects need to be filed for that fund, and then the more restricted ones be filed in the stricter funds. And I think it would clarify which funds we're gonna spend for what a little easier.
You want to speak to the
So
ARPA?
I can speak to
I'm
ARPA.
going to see if we can get someone from finance to speak about the surtax.
So,
You get some money from finance.
Yeah.
so ARPA funds, you have your time restriction. That's the number one thing, is that you have that December 31st, 2026 date where we have to be done with the project. That's your largest restriction there.
Repeat that date again.
December 31st, 2026.
It must be completed, the
Must be
whole project?
completed, must be completed. Of course, it's federal funds, so there's a little bit of federal purchasing conditions, reporting, those types of things. But that shouldn't stop us from doing anything. I would not use ARPA funds for any kind of reoccurring expenses. At the last commission meeting where you said we could take the ARPA funds and use it for general government use as revenue loss, it opens the door for everything. So the good news is, say we don't use all of it on Sumter Boulevard and I-75, and we're in 2024, we can buy a fire truck, or we can buy police vehicles. We can do those types of things with the ARPA funds now. So it has a lot of flexibility, as long as you can stay within that deadline.
Commissioner McDowell?
Is it going to be realistically completed, the water and sewer to 75 in Toledo Glade? I mean,
Yes,
it is absolutely going to be completed by
unless
2020?
the world ends,
Well,
yes.
I understand that part, but I
It
mean,
will end if it's not finished.
I just wanted to hear that reassurance that, yeah, it'll be done. What about the?
By the end of 2023, it should be finished.
Because I believe you had said it can be done in continuity, both of them can be done at the same time?
Yes.
What about Sumter? Is that projected to be done by 2026?
I have all the confidence in the world that it can be done by the end of 2026. We're finishing up the design, if I'm not mistaken, now with Sumter.
Oh, I thought the mayor just said both Sumter and Toledo Glade were gonna be
But
done
they
at the
didn't
same time.
start, the designs ran on a kind of a different timeline, but they're finishing
Yeah,
up
we had
the
to
design.
redo something,
Yeah,
I
the
think, that
design
we
is-
thought we had done, and it really
Yeah.
wasn't.
The
Okay.
design is finishing up on.
Yeah, but no matter what part of the process they're in, they're working on both to get
They're
them
both
done.
going concurrently right now. It's just that one's a little further along. Toledo Blade, we've gotten bids back, and we'll be bringing that contract to you for consideration in the near future.
Commissioner McDowell?
As a follow-up.
Welcome.
ETA, I know we haven't even started procurement for price because we don't have the financing for it. But let's say in a perfect world, we have the procurement of Price Construction completed in 9 months. Will Price Boulevard be, well, it's gotta be contingent on a vote too. Is there a way that we can be pretty assured that it's gonna be finished by 2026?
Price will take approximately 2.5 to 3 years to complete construction.
It's gonna be cutting it close. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I would not use ARPA money on Price. Unless, I wouldn't do it.
No, I think we got other plans, hopefully, down the road, that I think would work out a lot better. Now, did we look into possibly using some of these funding on the, I'm sure it was asked before, I just don't remember, on some of the dilapidated weirs out there?
Yeah, you could, now that you've taken the vote that you've done on your ARPA money, you could, Val, please correct me if I'm wrong. You could use that money on the stormwater, water control structures. Yeah, you could do that if that's what you would like to do.
It just, all I'm saying is if we had any left over, it might get them a jump start on the process that they're looking at already starting to do, and we could be ahead of the game for once,
You make an excellent point.
so.
That's what I had in mind is-
I have a question.
Okay, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. On the broadband conduit, do we have a partner yet
We do
to
not have a
provide
partner.
the services?
We do not have a partner. We're operating off of prior commission direction about putting conduit or fiber capability on some of our projects, some of our road projects, and some of our utility projects. So that's what we're doing. We don't have a partner. We have set up a meeting to talk with a company called Hotwire, who is the internet provider of choice for Wellland Park. So we do have a conversation, when that happens, staff plans on having a conversation with them about the opportunities along those two corridors.
Because I would think if we're planning to pay for that conduit, that might be an incentive.
you make a good
in
point.
your negotiations.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I got a quick question on your total project suggestions comes to 7.9, but yet what we have available is 7.2. Where's that extra 700,000 coming from?
It wasn't meant to be all-inclusive for you to, you'd have to pick and choose. Something would not get funded, which is expected.
Okay,
God bless you. Was that a
No,
sneeze?
that was not a sneeze.
That was a snicker.
that was, they expected a
That
cut.
was a snicker.
Yeah.
I have another question. On the 10 acres for 3 economic development sites, that's 3 acres per site. Is the thinking that those properties would be leverage? Because they're kind of small to do anything of any significance. What is your thinking of that?
So, and I'll let Ms. Caitlin jump in if she needs to, but from our standpoint, one of the recommendations from the Camoin study was to prepare, as we get for business development, more shovel-ready sites. And in order for us to, some would say, create a land bank or create those sort of opportunities, we need to start purchasing land in order to do it. It would be a small step, hopefully, in the right direction. I don't think that that's going to be enough to be the end-all, but as we follow the recommendations, it was a starting point.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that 2 sites of 5 acres or 1 site of 10 acres might be, if we were really planning to develop something,
Right.
might have more thud value. Just a comment.
Well, and what we'll do as we are compiling our budget, that's part of expanding our economic development footprint, is to follow the recommendations of that study in order to have the best bang for the buck. So we would be bringing that particular one more fleshed out in the upcoming weeks to months.
50K, is that sort of the going rate for an acre of commercial property?
Caitlin Stelzer with Economic Development. We were
You need to
told,
come to the mic. Sorry, sir. I can barely hear you.
we were told by a commercial realtor that the average going rate is about 200,000 per acre for commercial land.
Whoa,
Yes,
Quite a difference.
Yeah.
whoa.
quite pricey.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else for us?
No, that's it.
Commissioner Luke?
This is on the same topic. This is the one that I feel is the least. That's $2 million, I think, is only gonna be a drop in a bucket, trying to prepare something to get it ready to be sold. And we don't even have the process to sell our properties finished yet. So I don't mind, making it last on the totem pole, but start with those higher ones first and then go to that. To me, the weirs are more important than trying to prepare the property, that if a developer really wanted it bad, as Vice Mayor stated, 3 acres is really small, they would be able to put in themselves. So I understand the moving forward, and I don't mind it being discussed. But we're already making progress on that Camoin study. We're putting in the infrastructure, we're doing the things that we need to do, and I don't want to trip up other items for the sake of the Camoin study. So to me, that one is the lesser, and we've got the money to pay for everything else.
Right, and I was thinking the same thing, as if that was at the ass end of it, whatever we had left, if we wanted to put towards it, if there was anything remaining. And you can buy property within a year's time, so, there's no rush on that, so. Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of projects that we can use to get it done by the 2026 deadline. And I'm sure if a crystal ball was available, they're going to extend that deadline as it gets closer, but we can't count on that. Look at how often they've changed the rules for
Yeah.
ARPA funds. I agree with Mayor when he said those water control structures and bridge things, that absolutely we can use to help jumpstart that whole program. But we also have Hillsborough and Cranberry that we have to plan for, and it's my understanding that's gonna be done probably 2025 at Hillsborough and Cranberry, because they're already in design. That one is going full speed ahead because we have another jurisdiction working with us on that. We could use ARPA funds for Hillsborough and Cranberry, and that would then free up the surtax that we were already budgeting for that for other projects.
True.
Thank you. You know, and as far as Welland Park Government Building, I would have to go back and double check the developers agreement. Is that something Welland Park is required to do, or is that something we are doing?
It's contractually required, so
So,
we have to design the building within 2 years after the conveyance of the land, which has not happened yet. And then we
Okay.
have to initiate construction after the design, within 1 year after the commission has approved the design, and then we have to finish construction 2 years after we begin.
just based on that timeline you just read, it doesn't seem like it's gonna be able to be completed.
No, that's what you contractually have to do, but, if we partner with the, district and the developer like we did with the public safety, based on my conversations with Mr. Lozinski, it can be done, within that timeframe.
But
Easily.
we can use government, impact fees to pay that back.
You absolutely, but you don't have enough general government impact fees to make up the delta. That $2 million delta includes $1.5
I
million
don't know what you
of
mean by the delta.
the
I'm sorry.
difference. So the building's gonna cost about $6.5 million.
Okay,
So of that is some surtax, if I'm not mistaken, and some general government impact fee. But you still have even using general government impact fee money, you still have a $2 million deficit.
so the repayment for the building is not based on how much is collected, there's a specific dollar amount? I don't have the
Yeah, they don't
agreement in
wanna,
front
they
of
don't
me.
wanna loan the money like they did in the public safety
Okay,
complex. They
that's-
don't wanna do that.
Okay,
But they're willing to build it, they're willing to use their
but we have to make
construction
sure we have
prowess.
the money to
You
be
got
able
it.
to pay them back
Right,
quicker than using the impact fee money.
they're not going to wait and float
Okay.
the.
We need to hand them the money and then they'll build it.
Okay. Again, I didn't have it in front of me, so thank you for that.
Anything else, commissioners?
On that topic, I think that annex building is vitally important. A portion of the money is coming from the building fund because we're gonna be putting up, some inspectors in that building. I think it makes a huge statement, to us. And I have been for it for several years. We've got everything in place but the $2 million. And that is one of the reasons that I was questioning the buckets of funds of where you can spend and how you can spend, was a whole lot out of this, because we do have our sustainability fund that's got some money in it. And we've got surtax, we've got ARPA. Which fund does the Welland Park Annex fit into the best?
Well, currently we have, we've talked about using some surtax money, some building department fund balance, some general government impact fee monies, and if y'all allow it, then ultimately some ARPA.
Well, I'm
funds.
talking about that 2 million. Which fund should that 2 million, because we've got it sitting there. In 2 or 3 different funds, it's sitting there. Which one is it more advantageous for us to use so that we hold the 2 million in the other buckets for something different?
I would recommend that if you've got money with a time ticking on it, you would want to spend that money as quickly as possible so that you met the requirement and didn't have to send that money back to Washington DC.
Okay, so they can get it done before 2026, so the
Yes,
2 million falling in this would be good.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
but that's just, you know, my thoughts. I don't know, Kim,
yeah.
As long as that, you know, timeframe can be met, and I have no doubt that John and Rick can get it done, then that saves up that sustainability fund to be used in some other area. All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner McDowell.
Assistant City Manager Yarborough mentioned that they have to convey the property and we still have to do design, we still have to go out for are we gonna be responsible for the procurement, or is that something West Village's Improvement District is procuring?
it's the thought to do something similar, if y'all haven't given the green light for this, but the thought is, in conversations we've had with Welland Park, both the developer and the improvement district, is to do something very similar to public safety, other than we would upfront the money along the way versus them floating the finance. So it'll be a similar process. Because it worked well. I mean, it worked really well. And they can do it faster than us, and in some ways they can do it cheaper. You have the tax exempt capabilities of the district with the speed and the construction knowledge of the developer. So it's kind of it's a nice tag team.
Don't we have an idea of what we want the building to look like and what we want?
I mean, it's not designed.
When are they gonna convey the property? Because that seems to be the biggest question. If they can't convey the property, we can't do anything. I mean, is that gonna be relatively soon, or is that?
Yeah.
And is there a,
Timeline for that,
is
yeah.
there a requirement in the agreement, like they have to have 5 million homes sold? Well, then,
Well, contractually, the conveyance probably should have already happened
Should have
by now.
already happened.
But we're having conversations about doing an amendment, bringing an amendment back for you for consideration on that conveyance, because there's a lot of interesting things happening with the 137, a lot of interesting discussions about what to do with the 137 acres on River Road. And this little parcel over here is kind of along for the ride in downtown Welland Park. Because, you know, we've had conversations, John's had conversations with y'all about sports tourism on that land in conjunction with the county, on the 137 acres along River Road. So the conveyance of that is being talked about with a possible amendment to the agreement to come back for your consideration.
I don't see how the two are tied.
Well, the agreement ties them together with the conveyance of the various parcels that are scheduled to be turned over to the city. So the post annexation agreement ties those together. Yeah, we can uncouple them, but in a way, it's kind of to our advantage, because our obligation doesn't start until that land is conveyed. And once that conveyance happens, then the clock starts. Contractually, we have to build the building within X number of months.
And I agreed with you up to the point of we didn't have the money.
Right.
But now we've got the money.
Right.
To me, uncoupling them, because I don't see that sports tourism thing flaring up and going anywhere real quick. And so if you uncouple them, you're gonna be able to have your annex out there a whole lot sooner.
And I suspect they will want that.
Be able to
back.
have your staff out there using the building, their own building, not going out to somebody else's building.
Yeah.
I would encourage the uncoupling and get this done while you have the money.
Make a good point, Commissioner.
Go ahead, Commissioner McDowell.
yeah, if there is a realistic timeline to get everything conveyed to us, designed, construction, procurement, and constructed in, we'll call it, 4.5 years, that would make a logical sense. But where are we with the utility building? I mean, we are talking about wanting to do a utility building. I know that the last update that I remember was we're still trying to purchase it, and they're working through and navigating that. And then the Northport PD building. There's a lot of capital big projects that we're needing to do, and I'm kind of like where Commissioner Luke is, trying to get best bang for the buck and making sure we hit that 2026 deadline.
Sweet spot.
Yeah.
If I could, I would say, I understand your concern, but the partner that you have out in Wellham Park, is more time sensitive, or
Okay.
is more aware of time than maybe some of the other property owners you're trying to deal with, in the legacy part of town.
Sounds good.
One of the other things we can consider for some of those public buildings are leaseback options. I don't know if that hits our bond situation, if that's considered loans. I don't think so. But we should also take a look at that kind of a situation to free up other monies for capital projects.
Could I ask utilities if they have the money for their complex? For the, I thought so. You've got the money to purchase and you've got the money to build.
The new building is.
Anything else, commissioners? So basically what we're looking at here is what I'm hearing up here is pretty much approving everything except for the purchase of the 10 acres for the development sites at this point right now. And can I get a consensus on that?
Well,
Well,
do we want to add Hillsborough and Cranberry?
Well, that's what we're gonna have left over is the money that's left over, then we have to earmark that for something. Cause that's approximately $1.5 million that should be left over.
How much is Hillsborough and Cranberry construction?
Do you
Does
have
anybody remember?
any estimates of Cranberry and Hillsborough construction? Can you give an answer?
Because
I thought it was,
I know
like $1 million.
they're paying half, we're paying
Right.
half.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying if we take those numbers down and we take off that 2 million, that brings it down to 5,971,000. Okay, and we have 7.2, correct? So the difference between the 7.2 and the 5.9,
Basically.
about 1.5 million, and then we would have a discussion and discuss if we wanted to earmark that towards Weirs or down there at the Cranberry and, Hillsborough area, and ear slot that money that way. But basically, we wanna do everything up here except for the purchase of the 10 acres. That's what I'm hearing on the board.
I need to talk to the purchase of the 10 acres because if we don't make a commitment to economic development, we're always going to be chasing the costs of these other projects. So I'm a supporter of funding a land bank. I don't know what other potential sources of revenue we might have for that activity. But I think it's vitally important to our ability to leverage commercial development to have those kinds of properties.
But most of the ARPA funding that's coming in right now is going towards the economic development by getting the water and sewers out to 75 on Sumter and Toledo Blades. So they've got a huge chunk of it. This
Absolutely.
just may have to wait in line a little bit. That's all I was saying. Commissioner McDowell?
Can we even use ARPA funds to purchase property? There's no project going on, it's just purchase of property.
If it's a general government use, it can be used.
My question is, I mean, we've got this roundabout out at Hillsborough and Cranberry in motion.
That's gonna
Certainly,
be done.
certainly, we've already got the money for that.
Allocated from
I don't
where?
think
How
it
how
has.
do you have design and plan and everything else and you don't have the money set aside for your project? Does anybody know
We're
if
at the
that is
design
funded?
phase right now. We haven't started they're still doing design phase. It hasn't gone out for procurement for construction yet.
We'll find that out.
Okay. The numbers that I'm remembering in my head, that 1.5 would probably fit that very lovely.
I think.
I think it was about 1.5.
Yeah, I think it was about 1.5. So I think it would fit it very lovely, and so I'm in agreement with Commissioner McDowell. I'd stick that one in.
And that's fine. I got no issues with that either.
Yeah, when it comes to budget time, if it was gonna be surtax or whatever it was gonna be used, you have that left over
To use
to
for other
use for
things
something else.
Yes.
that don't have that pressing
Time.
2026 must be used deadline.
And Hillsborough and Cranberry will be done by then.
No, I agree.
Are there any other requirements for ARPA funds or the job growth grant? Because that job growth grant is in there. Are there any other requirements for either one of those pots that we may not be aware of? Besides the deadline and requirement to create jobs? I don't even know how many jobs it's required to create.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, how many jobs it's required to create, but that project has already been bid. And it was bid with those conditions for both the job growth grant and ARPA. So those conditions have been satisfied through the bidding process. So as to deadlines and those types of things too.
Has anybody been able to get an answer on the cost of construction for Hillsborough?
We're working on it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. They're fast and furious.
You
I'm waiting for them right now.
Oh, I thought you were saying, yes, you haven't, sorry.
Actually, I'm fine with this list, putting Hillsborough and Cranberry on. I mean, even if it comes in a little bit more, you use your surtax or whatever to finalize it, so.
Well, yeah, we gotta pay for it regardless.
Exactly right.
This,
So you-
this'll be just the main portion of it. If we have to kick in a little bit,
Exactly.
it's a buffer, so.
What's the city website improvements? Is
That is-
software?
No, ma'am, that is the overhaul of our website itself, to
Okay.
bring it up to more user-friendly,
Well,
better.
thank God.
Yeah,
That's a massive,
I would say
That's
thank
a
God,
huge
but yes,
Yeah.
one of the two, right.
Well, if he gets it fixed, he may have a new title.
Can I weigh in on that?
Go ahead, ma'am.
So because of the costs of construction, like I had mentioned earlier, to me, the website goes to the very, very bottom because we may have to have additional monies to fulfill those increasing costs of construction. And we can use that $100,000. It's not a lot, but it is still better than nothing if we need to use it.
I think our website improvements are a key part of our transparency as a city. And in conversations, we've talked about making it easy for people to go on the website and sort of see different projects and where we're at with different projects. I would not put that at the bottom of the list. Number 100,000 is insufficient for backing up any capital project. And I just really see that website as a key part of our transparency and good government.
If there is large increases besides the 10% contingency for these water and sewer projects, where might that money come from? Because I would hate to have those projects get delayed because of the financial constraints of supply costs.
Probably
sustainability fund, perfect place, or perfect fund to use it.
How much is in that fund?
Over 7 million.
Oh, you're talking about general fund balance?
Yep.
Okay. You were referring it to as sustainability, and thank you.
It's
Wanted to
the,
make
it's
sure.
the second pot
There's
of
no second.
general fund. Yeah, the first pot is the 20%
Correct.
emergency, and then the second is the sustainability up to 10%.
Are we still waiting on that
We're
figure?
still waiting, or,
I mean,
Either
but
way.
this is why I'm asking. I was just gonna suggest that we go ahead and approve this list and earmark the remainder for Hillsborough and Cranberry intersection, whatever those numbers may be, and, just move on. So I'd like to
I'd
get
agree with that,
I'd like to get a consensus on that, Commissioner McDowell.
yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Luke, Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Langdon,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so you now have your direction on your fundings and the blessings from this commission.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so now we can move on to whatever was next. 22-2789, city manager, I guess is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is discussion regarding the status report of the neighborhood water and wastewater expansion project. Background information is that we have heard from you in a workshop back in December 2020, and you approved the following. There was a consensus to move forward with the septic to sewer program, consensus that density shall be the primary driver to accomplish that goal, and there was a consensus to start the Blue Ridge Salford North design. So on May 21st of 2021, the commission approved the following, which would have been direct staff to create a readable map depicting all existing sewer sheds with greater detail, and a consensus to direct staff to bring back an agenda item with recommendations regarding testing or report on discussion with Charlotte County staff. So here we are, moving forward to December 14th of our regular commission meeting. A motion was made to approve the following revisions to the policies related to the expansion of water and wastewater identified in the primary cost estimates and general sequencing of the master plan relative to existing residents. And that was to revive the water line fee from the current $43.75 per foot to the revised fee to be established in the rate analysis. Add a wastewater line fee to be established in the rate analysis as well, and a hardship program, approval of deferral program, and reduction of annual payment program. Not to exceed the amount for waste, water, and water. Option A was a customer cost of $5,235. Not to exceed for wastewater only. Option A was cost for the customer of $2,213. So this information is part of what we want to discuss with you today. We do have our team ready. I believe a map is going to, or a PowerPoint will be used to help guide us through the conversation from where we were in those prior meetings to some of the information we want to discuss with all of you today.
She
Okay,
broke it.
almost. Nancy Gallinaro, Utility Director, City of Northport. Thank you for an opportunity to give you an update this morning on the neighborhood expansion. The vacuum station property will be discussed tomorrow in the commission meeting. So today we really just wanted to give you a larger overview of everything that's going on. I do have a lot of staff here, so we're going to rotate around. As you know, I'm new. So I wanted to bring the subject matter experts here today so that we could answer any questions and anything that we need to do more research on to bring back in a June or July date. Okay, so we did already recap this, so I won't spend too much time on this, but you approved to move forward with the design of the expansion master plan, which we did. The utilities received approval to move forward with the design of phase one, the Blue Ridge Salford North. In December of '21, we determined the maximum cost, as the city manager stated, $5,235 for current fees, meter fee to connect. Staff was then tasked to establish, modify the ordinance, finance prepayment options, and a hardship program. Those are with finance, and we are going to give you an update on those this morning. Upon approval and procurement of the station property, the design of phase one can be completed and put out for bid. Once it's out for bid, it will take about 12 months after the purchase, 3 to 4 months just for the bid submission and award. So even as we go through this approval process, it's still going to take some time. So we did the master plan. This is an excerpt from that. On the left, it shows all of the sewer sheds in Northport. On the right, it shows the phase one, or the Blue Ridge Salford North. I understood there was a question about a picture that was on the website that it was very difficult to look at and to enlarge. That was updated on the website, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. So this area had 1,570 total lots. 558 of those were vacant. 10 parcels out of the 558 were identified as potential vacuum station locations. This is the ranking that the engineering firm, Kimley Horn, gave to the different properties. They determined G to be the best, but we were unable to procure that property, so we moved to C, which is still a good property. And then we received the selection memo from Kimley Horn. We received approval to move forward with negotiation for parcel acquisition November 21. In December 21, we brought AAG on regarding the land acquisition services to help with the purchase of the land. The purchase order was generated, and in February, we began negotiations with the owner of Parcel C, which we will be bringing to you tomorrow. AAG and staff developed the agreement in March. So now I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer DeRosia to give you an update on the financial piece.
Thank you, Nancy. Good morning, everyone. Jennifer DeRosia, very sensitive, sorry, Assistant Utilities Director. And so the first phase of the Blue Ridge North project was estimated previously at $28.5 million. And even assuming an 18% increase in those costs, which is entirely possible, as some of you have pointed out, the increasing rising costs, we could still complete this project by 2031 based on the current funding plan. This funding plan will come to you as part of the CIP, or a portion of it, because it only goes out 5 years, but will come to you as part of the CIP next month during the budget discussions. And some of you may recall in February 22nd, the surtax plan included the $2.5 million a year for the next surtax phase, which would help fund this project. And we've also added a component of rate monies to get us to the reduced time frame. That was one of the concerns of the commission, that it seemed like it was going to be taking too long for the project to be completed. So we worked with our rate consultant, and according to the anticipated connections that would be paying, the new homeowners that would be paying, we should be able to get this done within that 8-year time frame. And actually, based on the direction that we went this morning, that could even be sped up a little bit more with the monies that will be put back into the utilities fund. Also, if I know tomorrow there's a debt funding question on the agenda to put out to the voters in the fall, and if that's something that Commission wanted to pursue, we could look at doing that as well, and that could accelerate the project even more, of course, with finance's blessing. Just a thought. But again, it doesn't really have to be done that way, because we do have a plan to get it done in the time frame. And so currently our ordinance is we have submitted a legal request for our ordinance to be reviewed. There was quite a few changes that were requested over the last several years. This is not just from December, but from the last couple of years as we've been discussing it with you all. And legal is also researching the prepayment options as well. And with that, I am going to turn the presentation over to Elizabeth Long for some discussion about the water quality data that we've been doing for the last couple of months.
Commissioner Luke?
Can we ask questions on this portion before we go into the testing? I see them as two different topics.
Sure.
I appreciate it. I'm seeing the 5,200 and 2,500 figures.
Yes.
What have you guys come up with for arrangements for the customer to pay those funds?
So
definitely some of them are not going to be able to hand over $5,200.
right. So right now, we have in the ordinance already that someone can pay that fee over time for as long as they want. There's no maximum date in there. So one thing that had been requested of Commission at some point in the last couple of years was that we put a maximum year on that. So we've I had suggested 40 and you guys came back with 30. So that's what the new ordinance is going to say, that they can still do that, but they must pay it within the 30-year time frame.
Is there gonna be, a portion that if they sell the house, that it is paid off even before that 30-year mark?
Yeah, so we have had this discussion as well, and one thing, even if we had it in our policy or in our ordinance that someone would not have to pay it off due to a sale, typically what happens is you're not going to be able to sell your house without having a clear title. So because we put a lien on the property, when they do that, they would not be able really to sell it without clearing that title. So they could work it out though with the new owner. They could, include it as part of the closing costs. It could be negotiated between the owner and the seller who pays that off. But you would probably not be able to get a mortgage for the new owner unless you had clear title on the home. So you would have to have that paid off.
That's logical and good thinking, just so we make the citizen aware, the homeowner aware, that that's what the lien is going to cause.
Oh, yes.
If they want to sell, because houses are selling so quickly.
Oh, yes.
And so they need to be forewarned of that.
Yes,
So, all right, thank you.
you're welcome.
So these numbers, is this the actual cost total it's gonna cost the homeowner? So 7,000-ish?
5,200, and I think we had it on the slide previously here.
5,200 for both,
5,235 for an existing homeowner, yes.
25 if they only run the wastewater.
Yeah, I think it was
Okay, so total out of pocket is gonna be 5,200
for an existing homeowner, yes.
to get hooked up and ready to rock and roll and.
Yes, sir. Part of our plan is to include the on-site costs with the construction. So they would have all the work, including the cost to, disconnect the sewer and crush the septic, disconnect the septic and crush the septic, and I mean, they could use their well for irrigation if they wanted to, but to disconnect it and do all of their on-site costs and the external cost project as well. That's what it would cost an existing homeowner, not a new homeowner.
Yeah, what about a new
No,
homeowner?
New homeowners will have to pay their full share.
And that's a maximum cost of 5,000.
That's what we currently, right, that is
Not
including,
a standard, a maximum cost.
Right, and that's what I've been waiting on, is hard numbers before I've moved forward with any type of approval on this project, because 5,000's a hell of a lot cheaper than 30,000, and that's what was proposed
Right.
out there, and then there was a lot of I don't knows.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we've actually got them now in hard numbers, now we might be able to progress a little bit further. So that's why I wanted to make sure those were the actual costs.
yeah, it's the water capacity fee, the wastewater capacity fee, and the water meter, which, those prices can kind of go up or down a
Sure,
little bit,
sure.
but
That's why
but
I
it's
said
rough, yeah.
ish.
Yes, sir.
I think this is excellent,
Yeah.
and you guys.
You guys have come a long way, thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah, it's excellent. We already know the cost of putting in the septic and drain field and everything equates to what it is to put in city.
For new.
So that's, for the new customer, that's give and take, the same thing. But to that existing customer, that's the one we didn't want the hardship on.
Correct.
Right.
So coming through with this lower amount, making it 30-year and the payment and.
I wish you were doing my neighborhood now, to be honest.
We're ready to go.
This is
Well, you know where they're at, you can move.
Now, new construction mandatory hookup.
Oh, yes.
Commissioner McDowell?
What is the cost of the new construction mandatory hookup? If it's not 5,200, because they're existing, what is it if you're new? I have a vacant lot, I'm building a home, what is that going to cost?
So the cost for the water line extension is going to be recommended at 7,500. And the wastewater line extension will be recommended at 15,000. So the two together will be 22,500, plus you add on the capacity fee for that as well. So about 28,000. roughly right about exactly what Commissioner Luke said, roughly what you would pay for a new well
Yep.
and a new septic tank and a drain field and all that.
And more room for trees, Alice.
That's right.
Well, it is, it's significant.
So
And,
what it-
and also with that,
Hold on,
I'm
Commissioner
sorry.
McDowell still
Sorry.
had the floor, I'm sorry.
So what is it if there's somebody that currently has water, because some of those parcels have water,
Yes.
what will it be, their cost to connect for sewer?
So I believe it's $2,213 for sewer only.
Thank you. Are these those prices, I know we're gonna be talking about new rate increases and new fees and stuff. And I think this is kind of what you had already asked. Are these going to possibly go up a little bit, not thousands and thousands, but they could go up maybe a couple hundred here or there?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner
I have
White.
other questions, but that's it. on this.
yes, I appreciate bringing up the figures for new construction and comparing that to the initial cost for a well and septic, but that doesn't end there. As we know, people have to redo their septic fields, have to re-drill their wells. I've been talking to some man who says he has saltwater intrusion in his, and he has no way to fix that.
Right.
So I think that's important to bring up. My question was that $5,235 to connect for both, isn't that really low compared to what other neighboring areas? Because I thought the neighboring areas, it was roughly like 10,000.
So,
They're not as smart as us.
But like Sarasota to Charlotte County, it's usually was around $10,000 that people were saying that they were paying for both. This is really low.
yeah, commission had directed that we would just charge them for existing, for
Yes.
just the capacity fee and the meter fee. So that's all that's included in there.
So it's being subsidized with,
Essentially, it's being subsidized with the surtax funding, yeah.
okay. I think that's important that people realize that.
Yeah, that should
a
all be
great
part of the educational
Yeah.
process moving
We
forward.
learned watching
Yeah.
those neighbors.
Yes.
I mean, we really learned.
We've come a long way on this in a lot of discussions, so.
Yeah. All right, that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think part of it was in order to get the cell and I think any commissioner at that point, I think all of us were adamantly opposed to it at the $30,000, $45,000 price tag.
Right.
Because you could not sell to anybody.
Right.
And I think that's why we just said, we gotta figure out another way. If you wanna get this done, find out another way. So, thank you for that. I just wanted to throw that in based on the comment, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I have other questions whenever they're finished talking about these fees.
Did you have something you look
I
like?
just think it's great. I'm happy
Yeah.
as a
Well, go ahead, Commissioner McDowell.
blanket.
Yeah, it's great.
That's the water testing, sorry. When I look, can you pull up the map real quick? There you go. So when you say sewer shed, that's everything in that dotted line diagram.
Yes.
Are you doing the entire 1,500 lots all at one time?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
That's what I want to get focused on. So you are not doing the entire 1,500 lots at once.
No.
And maybe this is premature, but I don't know. What are you going to be doing?
So currently, and Mike Acosta might be able to speak a little bit more intelligently to that than I can, but currently there is a design out there for the vacuum station, and whatever dollars that we could support for the rest, the infrastructure in the streets. However far that took us, the dollars that we have already with Kimley Horn, that is what is currently under design and would be constructed. From there, it would depend on how much we have funding for to the next phase of the project.
Okay, so help me understand how many parcels does a vacuum station accommodate?
So the whole sewer shed will be covered by one vacuum station.
Okay.
But it's it costs roughly about $1.5 million for that vacuum station. So because we were only sitting on, X number, $2 million or whatever, you could only do the vacuum station and limited pipe in the ground.
So it would make sense to start, if you're putting the vacuum station at C, you're going to start around C.
Correct.
You're not gonna start way at the bottom.
Correct.
You're gonna start around C.
Yes.
And then work your way out.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that when you say that 2031, that you expected to have it done,
Yep.
that is basically a phase.
Yes.
So it's sewer shed 1, phase A, phase
Correct.
B, phase C. Okay.
Yes,
How
100%.
many phases do you expect to kind of have?
Well, that all depends on how much money we
Oh,
have.
that's true. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Price Boulevard, I'm looking.
Price goes right along where the top of the circle is.
Yep, I see that there. Okay. And I asked this during the one-on-one, and I wanted to make sure that you guys were prepared to ask it. In 2016, the commission denied doing sewers on Price.
Directly on Price. Mm-hmm.
Yep, directly on Price during the Price Boulevard widening.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to get into the Price Boulevard widening project, but at the same time, if there's some parcels that are gonna be covered under this phase A,
Yep.
how are we going to do sewers on Price, or are we not doing them on Price? How is that going to work when we, the community, was told, because this was before my time, that there can't be sewers put on Price?
So at the time, well, first, I just want to clarify, Price would not be included in the first phase. So it's going to be a future
Alright.
year, maybe next year, 2 years down the road, whatever. But the question at the time for Price Boulevard would have required us to do an extremely expensive proposition, because Price is a linear road like this. You can't just, you'd have to have a lift station every, 10 homes or whatever. It just would not have been financially feasible to do that. But with the vacuum station, it will cover this entire sewer shed without that huge expense of having to put a lift station every 10 homes if you were to do it just on a linear. Or you could have done like a low pressure sewer system, which nobody wants in a very sensitive, ecological area. You don't want to have those type of systems around water sheds at all, or canals or anything like that. So those were the choices at the time. We did not anticipate a vacuum station as being something that we could have recommended. And the study that was done by Giffords and Webster, that this is the system that they suggested. And so we had not been looking at that before.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I think we'll have a further conversation about Price Boulevard and sewers at the same time, dig once, be done with it kind of thing.
Yep.
But that'll come at another time, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Vacuum stations. I have no idea what they look like. I looked at the area around C, and there's a lot of homes around it. And I know that some utilities have little mini lift stations. They're very small. Is a vacuum station small like that, or is it a little bit bigger? Is it smelly?
Well, I know Mike and Jennifer had gone on a field trip to one, and Elizabeth's saying that she can comment as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Acosta, Utilities Engineering Manager. So I can pass my iPhone around to show you a Charlotte County one, because that's where the most recent was. They kind of are completely housed in a house, if you will. It looks like a house. It looks like a house. It has some odor control on it. The Charlotte County ones kind of sort of don't look like a house because they have a half wall and then a fence on top of the wall. It's nice and decorative, but not too many of us have half walls in our front yards. So I don't know that I would recommend a half wall. We are going to want to fence it for security purposes, but that's kind of what they look like on the outside. All the equipment is internal. the odors as they might be are generally handled in a mulch bed. And a mulch.
Oh, mulch.
Yeah, so they irrigate the mulch bed to keep it wet. The bacteria do their thing and eat up the hydrogen. And actually, they convert the hydrogen sulfide. They don't eat it. They convert it to a non-noxious gas. And so they're pretty innocuous. Charlotte County does a really good job of maintaining them. We would do a really good job of maintaining them. I've seen some not well-maintained ones, and it's kind of like the house down the street that nobody paints. You know, it's kind of becomes an eyesore in your neighborhood. But that's not, that's a maintenance issue, not as you guys may or may not know, Sarasota County kind of embarked on the Philippi Creek thing. Geez, it's 25 years ago now. And so these are pretty ubiquitous there. Inglewood started even earlier in the early 90s. They're the first ones that kind of did vacuum sewer systems on the west coast of Florida, to the best of my knowledge. And that initial, as Jen said, the initial thing, that vacuum station is expensive. But if we were going to do this the traditional way with gravity sewers and lift stations, you probably wind up with 4, 5, 6 lift stations times, $350,000 a station. You're at the $1.5 million, and you have them dotted all over that 1,500 lot neighborhood, as opposed to a single station. So I think that this is, I don't have a tremendous amount of experience with them in an operational sense. Sarasota County has lots of experience with them now, and I've spoken to those guys for a long time. And, it's not something new, but, I is not an issue. Inflow and infiltration. If I do that, just tell me, because I will acronym you guys. Inflow and infiltration is not a problem. We have a big problem with inflow and infiltration. When it rains, our flows at the wastewater treatment plant immediately jump. That's not an issue with the vacuum sewer system, because it's a closed system. It doesn't rely upon gravity to get from point A to point B.
So the vacuum system is going to eat up the first funding to have it done in 2031? And then we
Well,
get
that entire sewer shed, both water and wastewater, is that $30 million roughly mark that Jen said. So however much funding, so if we want to write a $30 million check, we can get it done in the next 2.5 years. So it's just a matter of funding. The vacuum station is about $1.5 million. And that's the big ticket item on these things, because the piping is much smaller than a traditional gravity sewer system. And the force main obviously be the same going out the door and connecting to ourselves.
This is gonna show my ignorance. You guys put the pipes down the middle of a street. Tearing up an entire street. Why don't we focus on one side so that you're only tearing up one side? That's the first question. Second question is why do you put it under the street anyhow instead of over into the right of way? What's the difference? I mean, to me.
So what you see down the middle of the street is traditional gravity sewers, and they're put there typically so that they're out of the way on the other side. So you'd have water and all the other stuff that happens on there. And it's somewhat protected, because if you think of it in a swale, a gravity sewer in a swale, you're exacerbating the problem of inflow and infiltration. But with vacuum, the pipes are much smaller, usually 3 or 4 inch, and they will be on the sides of the road. Now, in some areas, we're gonna be tearing up both sides of the road because the water's going on one side and wastewater's on the other. But we will not be going down the middle of the streets. We will be crossing the streets and making cuts in certain places to get from point A to point B across.
That's right, I remember you saying that in the meeting, thank you.
Commissioner McDowell?
Can you remind me why we can't put water and sewer in the same hole?
Usually you don't have enough space. The DEP requires a minimum separation between water and wastewater, and usually there's not enough right of way on one side of the road to make that happen. And it's, from a practical sense, it just makes good sense that water's on one side. That way nobody 25 years when we're all gone taps the wrong main for water supply. Because I've seen that happen.
Yuck.
And I'm sure with the swales also have your cable, your electric, your what, all sorts of
Rights of
other
way
stuff.
these days are incredibly congested.
They're
with
very
stuff
busy
underground.
Underground, and nobody sees how
There may be
busy
more
they are.
traffic underground than above ground.
All right.
Really?
Yes, I do.
Commissioner White?
I know it's unusual. I just wanted to clarify, phase one is just what's in that circle?
No, what phase one is kind of a geographic area where a vacuum station could be any place in that area and take care of the entire sewer shed.
Okay. So,
The dotted lines.
The dotted line
The
is the
the dotted line is the sewer shed, yes.
okay, so that entire area, you're saying that would be done by 2031?
And yeah, with the funding as we put in the budget, I think, Jen, right? That we could get it done by 2031. Somebody will see that
The entire
through.
area, I'm talking about not just that circle, that whole block.
That, right,
Okay,
everything
wanted
that's
to
in
make
the
sure I had
dotted.
that right. And then what you're looking at for parcel C, is that on Lubec? Is that where that is? Is that?
I don't know the name of the street it's on. I know the owner's
Yeah, it's
name.
Lubec, okay.
Lubec and Papia.
So, and when you looked at those pictures, I'm hoping that, because looking at where that is, I think it's pretty obvious the adjoining lots are undeveloped, so it's
Correct.
hiding it right now, but once,
Correct.
goes away, that's when people say, what is this? So, I would like to see some.
The aesthetics of it is something that we can play with, right?
Because
Yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
residential area.
absolutely.
Still, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that Charlotte County one is horrendous. I wouldn't want to live next to something like that, that picture you showed us.
Yeah, it's in the, they have a lot of concrete. They do
Yeah.
have a lot of concrete.
Sure do.
Let's just say they have a lot of
Sure do,
concrete.
okay.
I would
Oh,
add to,
thanks.
Mike, if I can have the mic sitting right.
I'd still rather have that one building
Yeah,
in
the
that whole
house.
watershed than
Five,
13
13.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
spread all around.
We can also, it's my practice in past construction projects elsewhere is to go back when we have a preliminary design, meet with the community, go through that, talk, because right now, without the purchase of the property, we don't know where it's going to sit on the property, things like that, what it's gonna look like, the size and such. So this would be an opportunity to go back to the community and have them look at the preliminary design and then have some comment time to help us with the aesthetics and calm any fears about odor or noise or things like that. So that's the plan.
Commissioner McDowell?
I need to get clarification, because I thought I heard Jen say, no, you are not going to be doing that whole dotted outline by 2031, only phases.
No, we definitely will, as. So this is our phasing plan. And we will be able to have that entire sewer shed done, I apologize, by 2031. If I gave that, that is definitely, the lift station, the vacuum station, and very limited force main, lines will be able to be constructed currently. But with funding, as long as we have this funding, we will be able to get the entire sewer shed done in the 8 years.
I appreciate that clarification, because
Sure.
I heard you're going to be phasing it,
Correct. Over the 8 years, yes.
over the 8 years, okay.
Yeah, because right now, all we're having designed is just the vacuum station and very limited. So assuming the funding comes in as planned, which of course we wouldn't enter probably into anything else until after the November election for the surtax, then we can continue on with design for the rest of it and programmed construction over the next, 7-8 years.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
And you brought it up because of surtax. So, trying to think outside here. The city water, city sewer expansion projects at Toledo Blade and Sumter. We'll use Toledo Blade because that's further ahead. As those come online and developers develop, they bring in that commercial property and they have to connect to the city water, city sewer lines.
Correct.
Are they going to be repaying us for using ARPA funds and having some kind of an agreement and paying us
Yes,
back.
yes. So that is something that we added into the ordinance. It's called a contribution to native construction. It will be included in their developer agreements when they come in. They will be having to pay their portion of the project.
Okay, because there's something on your ordinance status, it said developers will pay proportionate share of grant-funded extensions contribution. Okay, so that is,
Because we've not ever had a grant funding construction in the past, so we had to add it to the ordinance so that we would be able
That
to.
being said, that being said, from an incentive point of view, you may be approached by staff to consider, depending on what comes walking through the door for some of those commercial or industrial areas.
so as we're working on our incentive package, which was focusing strictly on impact fees and impact fees and mobility fees, will capacity fees possibly be considered as incentives?
Capacity fees, you cannot consider that as an incentive, to the best of my knowledge, under state statute, you can't do that. But with this, it's a contribution aid in construction, that's for line construction and it's a grant. So I think that you should have the flexibility in this portion of the fees to be able to do that
If I could play lawyer for a moment.
Please go ahead.
Don't do it.
Just like the impact fees, you can give incentives, you can give away impact fee monies to incentivize people, but then you've got to make that particular impact fee whole. And I assume the same thing can apply to on your utility side of the house. You can give incentives, you can give away, but you were going to have to make the utility fund whole.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's correct.
So what are the plans, so we have this big developer that's gonna come in and connect to the utilities, and they're gonna pay, I don't know, $4 million, I'm picking a number. Where's that money going to go? Is that, or do you need commission direction on how, at some point, where is that money gonna go? That was used for ARPA to construct, they're paying it back.
I can't remember exactly how we have it worded in the ordinance right now. Typically, with other funds, the way that it's worded is that it goes back to the fund that funded it. So, if it's built by, the city, it would go, or utilities, it would go back to the utilities fund. If it was built by the grant, it would go back to the grant fund. That's typically how it's written in our ordinance.
So if
But that could be changed.
But if you're using ARPA funds to construct the city water, city sewer at the commercial interchanges, and those get paid back, it would go back into the ARPA fund, based on what you just said. Could we then put it towards neighborhood expansion?
You could do.
Or other expansion needs for commercial?
Yes, I mean, in the sewer shed, the neighborhood expansion, what I put into the ordinance is that money goes back to utilities, to the 420 fund, to continue putting like a revolving fund for that project. So that's how that's worded. We could do whatever was, the desire of the board for that.
That'll probably be a future conversation.
Yeah, because that's the way it should be. You're making your initial investment as it's going, it should be revolving and continuing on.
Right.
That's just my opinion. Any
Well,
other questions?
In my opinion, a grant fund isn't truly a fund. To me, you don't put money back into a grant, you
Right.
use the grant, and the money then goes into a fund balance, back into that particular department. You don't keep, it's on a time frame. You can't keep that more than 2026 anyhow. So if you use the grant money and somehow you get money returned, it goes to your fund balance, it doesn't go back to a grant fund.
I will look
It's
at.
illogical to me.
I'll look at how I wrote it. I can't remember how I specifically wrote that one, but I will look at it and see what it says, and I'll.
Truth be told, I don't think there is a specific fund for the grant.
grant,
It's
yeah.
earmarked, but it's all part of the fund balance, but Kim can correct me.
It would be in the general fund.
Thank you.
What all are you looking to get out of this, city manager, on this discussion?
Well, I think that based on the way we presented it, if we were in our one-on-ones, we have what we need. Is there any discussion, consensus points that we need? This is more of a update from, I think, the timeline to keep it going from where it was to where it is.
Yeah.
Is there anything we need for consensus?
No,
for-
I don't believe so. We just wanted to give this update today because the vacuum station is on the agenda tomorrow. And we had a few more slides in here, but I don't know
We
if
have
we,
Elizabeth to,
Yep.
update on the science. Before she heads, I need to take a.
Well, that's what I wanted to either
Oh,
see where we're
gotcha,
at,
gotcha.
because we could be done and then gone, but, we'll take a
Break time.
15-minute break and be back at 10:45. We're back in session and Elizabeth Wong and wrapping it up, so.
Good morning, Commissioners. Elizabeth Wong, Stormwater Manager for the record. I must applaud the Commission for taking this hard step towards centralizing sewer. It's a very difficult decision, and it's better now than later. And I'm going to show you some data, very exciting data, and I'm going to be very brief. Stop me anytime if I'm saying things you don't understand. I also live in El Jobin, and the east side of El Jobin just received their vacuum station. Vacuum sewers. This vacuum station's on the west side, and I ride by that vacuum station almost every other week. Just see how they do it, just because I'm a nosy Parker. And it's beautiful. It is very beautiful. It looks like a nice, expensive house. It's got tile roof, and it's got the half wall, you know, so it can block things out. And it looks very nice. And the biggest observation I saw was also I did not smell sewage, which is very good.
Excellent, yeah.
That's very important. Okay. And by the way, the disruption of the roads, because you were a little bit worried about that, hardly any. Nobody complained. It was done so fast. The road was repaired as they dig it up. They re-asphalt it, and it looks pretty nice.
Thank you for that, Ms. Elizabeth.
Okay, I am going to give you just the preliminary data of the water quality testing that was discussed last year. The data is from November to April, so it is pretty much during the drier part of the years, right? We're going to continue through the season for the whole year until October. So the next part of this data will be even more exciting.
How does that affect the testing, whether it's in rainy season or dry season? How should we look at the results?
Yes.
Knowing this?
Yes, that's why we're continuing for the whole year.
Okay.
There's
We'll compare it again.
definitely a correlation between pollutants and rain. Okay. And, pollutants could be on dry land until it rains, and then it washes into the water. Right? And then when it rains a lot, it goes down the ground, gets saturated, and if you have septic drain fields that are not designed correctly and have that 2 feet separation to the groundwater table, they get submerged, and guess what? Water can't move downwards anymore, it'll move sideways. Right? Especially those septic drain fields that are closer to canals and ditches, our ditches. Okay. So, I had presented this map last year in designing the sampling program, which was, there are many purposes for the sampling program. I'm going to focus on the reason why I chose some of these sampling locations to see the effects of septic drain fields on the surface waters. I'm going to put on my glasses because I can't see. Okay, so we chose sucralose as a tracer for effects of septic drain fields, see if they're leaking. The reason why we did sucralose is because sucralose is man-made. We want something that's man-made, not naturally out there. And if people are drinking products such as Splendor and other baking, it's used for baking goods and Splendor, pretty much more Splendor and a few other drinks. And you ingest it. Where's my other slide? Okay. It's slowly degraded in nature. That means that we can pick it up. If it degrades in nature, then I can't pick it up when I sample in the water. Okay. So it doesn't degrade very quickly in nature, to the tune of a couple of years, I heard. Right? And when you drink it, it doesn't incorporate into your body. It goes through you. A good percentage of it goes right through you. Only 2 to 8% is incorporated and metabolized by your body. The rest goes out the other end. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it'll go into the septic, right? And so that makes it a very good tracer. And if we find sucralose, there's probably other pollutants that goes through the septic drain field into our surface waters. So it's not my idea to use sucralose. Other people have used it before. Dr. Brian Lapointe is a professor at the University of South of us.
And Charlotte County has used it, and they've had some success. But I think our program has going to have more results than even their programs. We're doing it over a long period of time. So going back to the map, okay. The first point is baseline. We want to know what is coming to Northport where there's not much people. North of us is not a whole lot of people that will be drinking sucralose, so that'll be a good. Mostly cows, agriculture. So that's, so we want to make sure that we don't see any sucralose coming in. And when I show the data, you'll be like, ooh. Okay, so then I wanted to choose a couple canals. This is just recapping what I presented last year. We want to pick the bottom of some canals that has a lot of people with septics on it, but no reused water, not using reused water. Blue Ridge was not picked because it has reused water, okay? So we picked Lagoon and McCaughey, right? We also picked this sample spot, which is S2. It is Cocoa Plum going towards Como Waterway, which then goes into Charlotte County. This is the only spot in our system that flows most of the year to Charlotte County. So another point of this program was to see what we're sending to Charlotte County. So we chose that spot. So that's S2. S3 is the bottom of, S3 and 4, bottom of Lagoon McCaughey. S5 is again in Cocoa Plum, downstream of S2, S3, S4. Then S6 is just before it pops over the last structure on Cocoa Plum. And S7 is just before it pops over weir structure 101 on the Myakatchee Creek. We also have a last sampling point just for sucralose at the wastewater plant. This is after filtration, after primary, secondary treatment, filtration, and before chlorination, just to show that we have sucralose in the sewage. As you know, and if we pick up that means there should be sucralose in septic tanks. Right? So here's the results. And okay, I used yellow bubbles to show the bigger the size of the bubble, the bigger the amount of sucralose. So site 1, which is north boundary of Northport, there shouldn't be any sucralose. And guess what? We didn't pick it up. The bubble is so small you can't see it there. That's why I had to use a little arrow to show you where S1 is. So over here on the table is the actual average over the months November to April, and the min and max. Okay. S2, we picked up sucralose because there are people on septics in this area. S3, S4, all have good levels of sucralose. Okay. 6 and 7 have sucralose. The comparison point is S8, which is the plant. Plant has an average of 64. Wow. So people are drinking sucralose and discharging sucralose, and we are picking up sucralose in the canals, exactly how we sort of expected. Okay? These levels are actually higher than what I've seen in the literature from Charlotte County and Dr. LaPointe's work. He's picked up some, but not to the level of this. And this is a dry season. Yeah. So it'd be very exciting to see what happens when it rains. Okay. Any questions on how I present the data? Yes, Commissioner McDowell.
Commissioner McDowell.
So this is between November and April,
Uh-huh.
and we have our highest tourists here. And you're saying that sucralose is from Maine, so we have a higher population here. Then the next set of numbers that you said will be during our rainy season. I noticed that the average is within the min and max. All right.
The min and max is just that data set.
Oh, it's the data.
It's just that data set. It's
Okay,
it's not a what you expect to see out there, but it's just whatever data set is. It's just
Is there,
map.
and I don't know what government agency that says gives the numbers that say, hey, if it's over this, ooh, sound the alarms. What are those numbers?
There's no regulatory limit on sucralose.
Okay.
It's an indicator that we chose. We had discussions with DEP on what's a good indicator, and they suggested sucralose. There's no regulatory limit on sucralose at this time.
Which makes sense, but how does it compare to like Charlotte County or any of the others? I mean, we see this data. How do we know whether it's good?
Our data, our data is in line with what I've seen in Charlotte County. They don't have that many data points. They're like in the ones or less than ones.
The comparison is you, S2 through S8, comparing it to S1.
S1's nothing.
Right.
That's what it should look like, but you've got 15 to 20 times
Yeah.
the sucralose levels and the other, that's.
You say that, but nobody lives at S1.
Right.
Yeah.
And where you've got 80,000 people living in S2 through 7, you are gonna have some of that show. I mean, you definitely don't have 64, so septic tanks are doing something. But, yeah, I would like to know what kind of, comparison there was, so.
Sucralose is just the canary.
Yeah.
It's not what's damaging your environment. It's just an indicator. It's like, if it's there, it indicates you've got a problem with septic tank contamination.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, do we have the numbers for the nitrates and phosphorus? and-
We do have numbers for those.
Yeah.
And now, those numbers, and I can throw them up on the screen, just remember those is not just from septic. You have fertilizing, you have poop,
Pet
you
waste.
have agricultural contributions,
Right.
which are also official, right? Sucralose is pretty much attributed to people drinking it, getting it
Got it.
into the septic drain fields and coming out that way, right? So I can throw in the nitrogen, but it's not gonna tell you any story. We have nitrogen everywhere,
Right.
nitrate, nitron, TKN, all different forms of nitrogen. I don't wanna tie up with other stuff, but this is the only thing that can actually be linked with a leaky drain field.
Yeah.
Is your nitrogen reading in this presentation?
It is not, because we did not have a full year yet to have a discussion around it, but we did bring it with, just in case. So if
Do you
you'd
wanna
like
see?
to see it, we can show you. It's just not a full year, so it's not showing runoff and when we stop fertilizing, it doesn't have a lot of the other indicators that would go with it to give us a clear
I would just like
definition of where
to
it's
see
coming
what
from.
the ratio is from the sucrose to the percentage of nitrate. I would like to see that.
Usually you got your finger up, I thought you were
We
like
got kinda tired
in
of sitting, got kinda tired.
mid-thinking of a question.
It was just kind of like,
Commissioner McDowell?
oh, she covered it. You see where the word sucralose is? There's a symbol there. It kind of looks like a U with a tail in the opposite direction, or an H.
Microgram?
Oh, yeah, micrograms per liter. Yeah, that's the unit of measurement.
I'm sorry, what is that?
Micrograms,
Micrograms?
micrograms. Yes. Where's the pointer in this thing?
Per liter?
I have it on the screen too, if you want to pull it up.
Where's the
All right,
pointer?
It's still in
micrograms
PDF,
per
but you can
liter.
This is PDF.
It would be
here.
really interesting
good?
because usually the population slows down because of the least amount of visitors, like
I thought
March,
you had the other
April,
slides.
May, June. And then June is when usually rainy season steps in. So I think the sucralose numbers would be more accurate to the population of Northport. And it'll be interesting to see what those numbers look like.
You're absolutely correct, Commissioner.
Are you gonna do it by like month or?
I can do it any way. I will have graphs, I will have bubbles, I'll present all different ways,
Yeah, Yeah, because the population for
Complaint has been
those
monthly.
months that you got that initial data,
Yeah.
there's a lot more people here, you know?
Elizabeth,
Because a lot
you
of
don't-
people go home during the summertime too. You know, they go up north to the summertime, so.
You don't
Okay.
have to produce that info in this meeting. I can get with you another time.
Nitrogen.
Oh, you do have it.
I have it just in case you ask.
Yeah.
But this again, this is a dry season data, so it, I think the
Right.
number's gonna be even higher. Now, the thing that,
Wow.
oh, put on slide, where are we?
It's on the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oops, one up.
So what is that telling us at our, what do you call it, our baseline area, the nitrogen is higher than anywhere else? Is that sort of saying it's fertilizer?
Now, just remember, this is concentration. And cow, right, yes, cows. You see, S1 there is quite high.
It's very
And
high.
I expected that, because we have agriculture north of us, okay? Just remember though, this is concentration. And in nitrogen here is milligrams per liter. It's a concentration. Okay? The flow from north, okay, is a less flow than after it comes through Northport. We all generate flow, runoff from rain, right? So it may have a higher concentration but less flow, which means less loading. Loading is pounds per year. This one is pounds per unit volume. So when you have rainfall, it will wash the first set of rains. I've seen a lot of historic data where the first couple of months of rainy season, the numbers spike. Especially if you sample a day after the rain or a couple of days after rain, right? We try not to sample the day of the rain because of safety reasons, right? But I don't want to skew the data by saying we only sample when it is very dry. Then it's not, as representative. Nitrogen does have a limit. In flowing waters is 1.65 on an annual geometric mean. And I don't want to go too far into this, you can stop me, but you are interested in nitrogen and how you compare, how you understand the numbers. Sucralose doesn't have any of those numbers to compare with. Just what our neighbors have picked up in their studies, which isn't a lot of data. There isn't a whole lot of sucralose data, but they have some. Okay, any questions?
Very impressive that it's higher coming out of the preserve than it is at the
Now, if
plant.
if we don't contribute any nitrogen at all, if we are guilt-free of contributing nitrogen, then the concentration should be a lot less towards the bottom because we're diluting it out. So in a rainy season, you have to think, you have more rains diluting a concentration, but however, more rains is causing more pollutants to run off or seep from septic systems. So which one's going to outweigh the other one? For nitrogen, I know in the rainy season, the nitrogen concentration is going to go up.
Right. Phosphorus should too.
And when I have a whole year of data, I will show you graphs and historic data.
Interesting.
Oh, year after year after year is what I see.
Are
I
there
think I'm
are there-
done.
sorry.
Yes?
Go ahead.
Are there regulatory amounts that are considered safe for the nitrogen and phosphorus?
Yes.
There are, okay.
Good for nitrogen. For nitrogen in flowing streams. Now, our canals are not flowing
That'll be
streams.
interesting.
Flowing
to
stream
see.
would be Myakkachi Creek. That's 1.65 for total nitrogen and 0.49 for phosphorus. That's the limit, but it's not a one-time exceedance. It's an annual geometrical mean, not to be exceeded more than once in every 3-year period.
Whoa.
A little complicated, but so far we're doing okay. Okay. Slight increase, but still okay within the limit.
Thank you.
I have something there.
Of course you do.
Of course I do. I just wanted to put it out there that I don't want us to lose sight of what was the point of testing for that. It was because the initial conversations from people was that my septic tank isn't doing anything, or we're not polluting, and this is it's an
It's an
indicator.
indicator.
And as Jason said, it's the canary in the coal mine. It's just showing us that, yes, our septic tanks are contributing and leaking into our waterways. Because if we're finding things that are only generated from people, and that's ending up in our waterways, then those septic tanks are not being, whatever it is, contained, because that's what people were thinking. This is my tank, it's staying on my front yard, it's not going anywhere. And that this is showing clearly it does, and it is impacting things. So I think we have to stay, true to what was the point of having, when people that were insisting on this is what they wanted to know. Are our tanks leaking? Are we contributing to this? So that is what this is showing. Because there's other things that are being released. There's a whole thing about pharmaceuticals they're finding in fish.
Yes.
Which is horrendous. And then people are eating the fish that have, blood pressure medication in there, and it's just terrible. So that people have to understand that the septic tanks are not the way to get rid of our waste. Yeah. So just wanted to be sure we stay focused on what was the point. It's not what you're testing. If we're finding that element, then obviously other elements are going to be in there as well. Because if one thing's leaking, they're all leaking.
But part of the concern too is our septic systems aren't the only source of some of these pollutants. So I think some of my constituents said, well, gee, if you're going to be charging me thousands and thousands of dollars to convert, and I'm making up the numbers, and what's coming out of our leach fields is only 25% of the nitrogen problem, what are you gonna do about the 75%? Shouldn't you fix that first before you load the costs on me? So that argument will come up.
Right.
And I think we should have a handle on that answer.
Well, what I say is, there's things you can fix. There are things you can address. Some of those things, just because, Elizabeth said there's agriculture up there, there's cattle. Well, that's not an easy fix to tell DeSoto County you're not going to ranch anymore. I mean, that's unrealistic. That's not going to happen, but we can fix our septic tank.
But I see True Green trucks every single day.
Yeah,
In the
You're
city
right.
of Northport.
You're
So
absolutely right.
how do we estimate the impact of those monthly chemical dumps on our lawns?
You're right.
I think the
weekly.
largest way is education, because we now have the data to educate with.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. A septic tank has a drain field. Anything that's draining out into the ground, guess what?
Right.
There's gonna be a cause and effect.
Right.
So you're gonna have some portion of it be toward that. But the education of where our nitrogen level is at, that concentrate, is then the evergreen and that sort of stuff. We already have our, the
Fertilizer ordinance
fertilizer
and the
restriction
resolution.
in place. That's been in there for a long time.
Right.
We were one of the originals. So we are doing things, toward those types of the stuff, but education, we got the data now to educate.
And we can go further. There was just something in the paper today about getting rid of grass lawns again, and how having a grass lawn serves no purpose. It's a carryover from Merrill, England, actually. If you had grass, that meant you didn't have to grow food, because you were so rich you didn't have to grow food. But that's where the whole lawn concept came from. But going Florida friendly, not having to have that, and of course the industry, the landscape industry says, well, people like to have lawns so they can play, relax. I can't tell you the last time I saw anybody playing or relaxing on their front yard. It just doesn't happen. It's like, because it's hostile. There's nothing there. They don't even have a shrub or a tree, to play. What are they talking about? It's just this expansive nothingness on their front yard. And even Commissioner Mayo said, when they were doing the septic to sewer, he said people will understand how they're not being able to utilize all of their real estate now because of septic. But once you get off of that, now you have that front yard, it's all yours to do whatever you want with it once you get on sewer.
Apparently you're not a fan of the DDA.
What's that?
The Driveway Drinkers Association.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, but they have to put up those little shade canopies, right? Because they have some shade there, yeah.
Look how far we've come with our recycling education.
Yeah.
I mean, our city can be very proud of the recycling that goes on, and this is the same type of education. You start out and you educate, and a couple of years, you've seen
Right.
the results of it.
Right. But I agree with the vice mayor that it's part of the educational,
Yeah.
letting people
Yeah.
to know there are other ways, yeah.
I have embraced my Florida lawn. It's 70% weeds, but it looks green from the street. I'm happy.
All right, we got any other questions or anything? Thank you, staff.
Elizabeth. Wrap it up real quick?
Yep,
Thanks, Elizabeth.
everything is good.
All right.
Heather, do we have any, public comment?
We do not.
All right, it's 11:10 and we're out of here. I adjourn this meeting.
All right.
Well done.